What if I told you that you are not stuck in any way that you are? That you are able to rewire your mind and completely change your behavior, your reactions to the world around you, your mood, personality, career, relationships, everything, just by implementing simple brain training methods and teachings. Sound too good to be true? Today, Monica is coming onto the show to talk to you about how her life took a 180 for the better and dive into what it is that she actually did to create the kind of life transformation the majority of people only wish of having. That and so much more is coming on today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Shattering Reality. I am your host, Sabrina Weibel, and on this podcast, we break through the common limitations of modern reality and expand your thinking as we delve into topics of quantum physics, spirituality, channeling, and much more. Nothing is off the table here as we work to uncover human behavior and the secret powers of the mind and universe through discussing esoteric and sometimes controversial topics. Today I have on Monica, who completely turned her life around from barely making any money, just accepting the fact that she was always going to have anxiety, always feel stressed, always struggle in life, to now feeling so happy, excited, and fulfilled, smoothly running her own tutoring business as she is vacationing and getting paid to travel around Europe. She's even now paid off her family's debt, transforming their lives as well as the lives of the students she tutors, and she changed her life through using simple brain training methods and habits that she'll talk about. Before we get into the episode, I have to share that I just came out with a new free training all on how you can transform into the version of yourself who is quite literally living in your vision board, living in your purpose, and making an impact while doing it. You will come out of it knowing what you've been doing that's been keeping you stuck, what internal shifts you need to make today that will put you on track to that new you, knowing exactly what action steps to take to close that gap, and having activated your highest self. I recommend you tune into this training if you are ready to step into more love, abundance, freedom, and impact. It is coming across your field for a reason. The link to get access is left in the description. You don't want to wait on tuning in. Hello and welcome onto the show, Monica.
Hi, Sabrina. Thank you so much for having me on. So excited to be here.
Monica is a client of mine inside of my mindset coaching business. And Monica, you are like a completely different person than who you were when you first started to get into this type of like inner work, mindset work. And your stories and experiences are such a testimony to how powerful we are as like an individual person and the capabilities that each of us have to completely transform our lives. So I'm excited to share you with our audience today so that they get to see what is also possible for them by doing practices that sometimes can be a little out of today's norm.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing topic. And I think more and more people should be doing this work, and it doesn't have to be so complex and so difficult. So I'm excited to share what I've been able to overcome and what I've learned from you and your methods and teachings.
Yes, it can truly be so simple to implement. So there's so much that we can talk about today and the power behind this work, but let's start with where were you before you got into my world and learned about the Better You methods? And also, was there any kind of turning point that led you to start looking into personal growth in the first place?
So before I got into the Better You methods and just this sort of overall work, I was a totally different person. By that, I mean my identity and who I was identifying as. So I was holding on to all these emotions on the lower vibrational scale and just feeling very stuck. And I remember using this word to tell other people how I was feeling overall. It was just that was the word for me. It was feeling stuck. I was being constantly triggered daily. My internal world would just be very shaken up and rocky. Whether someone said something to me or did something to me, it really took me off track. And so I was just, I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't happy with where I was at in so many aspects of my life. And so I guess the turning point for me was just realizing and noticing that I didn't like where I was at. And I thought that that was my baseline. I really truly thought that, okay, I am this sad person. I am depressed. I am going to have this seasonal depression. And it was repeating and repeating for so many years. And so I thought that that was just me. But since I was a little girl, I always had this inner knowing that I was just very different from the people around me. And then growing up, I thought that being different was bad. And I thought that I was just doomed. I thought my life was doomed. I thought that this is how my life was going to go. So the turning point was just realizing that I don't think that my purpose is to be suffering. I don't think that I'm meant to suffer. And so it was kind of just that inner knowing. I really had to go with that intuitive feeling because I knew that I was meant for more. And the first time I came across your YouTube, just the words that you were saying really resonated with me because I did feel like I was special and different, but yeah, I knew that I wasn't meant to stay stuck there for all those years.
And it's so crazy you talking about that compared to where you're at now. So, before we go into any of the details, can we just tell the audience where you're at now?
What has changed? I've really let go of the control of needing to know how my life is going to play out. I used to have just all these ideas in my head about how my life is going to go. And I've realized that I don't really need to know. And I found that my life became so much more fun and exciting when I allowed myself just to have fun in the moment and not need to worry about where all the details and how it's all going to play out. So just letting go of the how. And yeah, so now I look to my future, and although it's not a clear path, it's a little bit up in the air, a little bit unknown, but I know that where I'm at today, I'm working towards a beautiful, beautiful future that is destined for me that I will get no matter what, but I don't need to have this clear path of how to get there. So I'm excited. I look forward to my future. I'm very excited for my future. I used to fear what will happen. I used to feel very alone. And now I don't feel alone. I feel very capable and supported just by the universe and just having that knowing that everything is going to work out the way it should.
And I just want to pause for a second and emphasize I was talking to somebody else, another client in my DMs about this recently, because so far you haven't even like gotten into all of the crazy things that you have manifested. I just want to point out to the audience, when you follow your intuition and follow the path of your heart, you're not going to know every step of the way. When you follow your intuition, it's going to tell you to make moves that you would not have logically made more often than not. And it puts you in this place of the unknown, of the uncertainty. And this is a really great place to be, because if we can logically know what step is in front of us, it's too simple, it's too easy. When you live with the laws of the universe, it's not going to be predictable. That is like we think that when we can predict our lives, then we're safe. We're in this box of like safety and security, but that is like the farthest thing from the truth. And when you can let yourself trust yourself, not only trust yourself, but also trust in the world, trust in your intuition, trust in the unknown, and allow yourself to be in that place of uncertainty and find the trust and the faith in that uncertainty. Just like what Monica's saying of like, she doesn't know exactly what's in those next steps, but that excitement is there, that faith is there, that trust is there. That is where so much of the magic happens. And that is where like all the manifestations happen. And they happen in ways that a lot of times you may not have even thought they would happen. And so I just wanted to emphasize that the more you do this work, and we'll get into more about what this work is, the more uncertain things are going to be. And this is a good thing. So anyway, you were saying, Monica, I'll let you go wherever you left off.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just like to add to that too. It really is stepping into the magic when you are following your heart, your intuition, how you actually feel. And you quit listening to what other people expect of you, what other people want of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, you have to ask yourself, what do you really want? Not what do you think other people want of you. So it really is in those actions that you take where, like you said, the magic happens, where you will actually be attracting the best situation for you. The best situations, meaning you'll have all these synchronicities, meeting the most aligned people that come out of nowhere, or just the most funniest of things will happen. And yeah, you'll realize that's too strange to be a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's just every action you take is going to affect the outcome. So it's all about your intention of how you want to go about taking those action steps and why. What is the reason?
Mm-hmm. Right, because if you go
Yeah.
at it with like my reasoning to take these action steps is these reasonings to try to up level my life is so that other people will like me, or because I hate myself and that's one way of going about it is like I hate my life so much and I need change, rather than if your intention is I want to do what lights me up. I want to do what feels good to me, because that is where all of the, like you said, the synchronicities, the magic, the abundance, the friends, the relationships, the career, like that's where everything falls into place is when you follow those true heart callings.
Yes. And I feel like in those aligned actions that you feel called to take, it isn't necessary to tell everyone around you. When I
Mhm.
started taking aligned action and went based off my intuition, and I would tell the people around me, they would think I'm crazy. People still think I'm crazy if I tell them my plans. So it's best just to be careful who you tell and just do the thing.
This is something that has really been in my sphere lately, this conversation of do you tell someone your manifestations or your next moves, or do you keep it quiet? And I feel like it really just depends on where you're at in life, because I feel like at one point in time when I was first starting my business and when I was getting things into motion, there were my close-knit friend group that I ended up manifesting. I felt really good telling them my manifestations and my plans because they would support me and they would help create more belief for myself when my self-belief was at a low. When I was like, I don't know if I can do this, they would help like chime in. But there's other things where I feel like right now where I'm at, I have this very strong self-belief. And I feel like the more I speak about my moves and my manifestations, the more it almost like takes away from the energy. Right now, I feel like when you are wanting to manifest something, right? Think of it in reference to like a pregnancy. And like there's a seed that's being grown inside of you. And it's like wanting to, the way that I see it is like nourishing that seed inside of you, that like manifestation, that desire, and letting that grow as you're taking action, as you're in reference to the pregnancy, fueling your body, getting your sleep, to the manifestation, taking that action, creating the certainty that like yes, this is coming. I feel like that can be such a powerful thing to not mention your manifestation to others and let it grow inside of you first until it's ready to be like birthed into the world. Then it's like it's showtime. This is what I've been working on. So I also have been thinking about that as well, Monica.
Yeah, and it's like nobody will actually understand your heart. So if what
Mhm.
you're trying to manifest, it's this small seed and you haven't nourished it yet, you haven't allowed it time to develop and just given it your energy or attention, people are going to judge it and they're going to project their own beliefs onto you. And this has happened to me before where I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do this thing." And like I'm like certain I'm going to do it, or like I really want to do it. And then people will just start to project their beliefs and just say, oh, what if this happens? Oh, that's not safe. Oh, how are you going to do that? How can you afford that?
Mhm.
And yeah, so it really does depend where you're at in your life. So in the beginning of doing this work, it was kind of more in my favor to not tell anybody. Now, if I just should I decide to tell someone what I'm up to, it's really about holding on to your having a strong frame. And if people want to say those things and just project their own beliefs onto you, you can just easily be like, oh no, but that's not even on my mind. So if that's on your mind, I don't take this. Those are not my
Exactly.
beliefs. Those are your beliefs. You can think that. But if I feel good about something, don't try to bring me down to what you're feeling if I already have a good idea about it. So
Mm-hmm.
it really depends on the person that you want to trust with your information.
100%. And there's definitely the people who naturally think more negatively. They naturally think more fear-based. And this isn't to put judgment on that person or to say anything negative about those kinds of people, but you do want to be mindful who you speak to and just note, do the people around you, do they often doubt themselves? Do they doubt the people around them? Are they speaking negatively or are they complaining all the time? And is this a good person that you would want to, that would like actually take your seed of a baby of a manifestation or desire? Would that person nourish that seed or would
Mhm.
that person just kind of spit on it and throw it away just because that's their attitude right now? So keeping that in mind of who you tell your stuff to. And Monica knows what she's talking about because she's been doing this mindset work for some time now, and she has, I feel like a list of manifestations of things that she's created for herself from doing this work.
I'm still in Europe, so I manifested living in Germany and Europe for 5 months of this year. And Sabrina, was so funny. I remember talking to you about half a year ago saying, I really love Europe. I really feel called there. I really want to move there, but like I don't know where or how or all the what ifs. And you spoke it into words before it actually came to manifestation, before it actually happened. You said, I remember your post, you said, we're going to move you. We're moving you to Europe. And I'm like, I had so much hesitation to repost it. I was like, are people going to ask me like, where am I going? And I don't have an answer. Like, what is this? But something about it was like, yeah, it's going to happen. So that was just,
Yes.
yeah, one of the biggest manifestations, not just moving to Europe, but to live alone also. I've been living with my family my whole life, and I felt that living alone would allow me space to get out of environments that weren't so good for myself and just to be by myself and to do even more of this work because I feel like there's just so much less distractions when you're on your own, you can hear your own thoughts. You're not constantly running into the people that you live with and family members, especially when you're trying to do this work. But with
Mm-hmm.
that being said, you don't have to wait until you are alone. And I used to think that maybe I'll heal myself when I live alone. Maybe I'll heal myself in like 10 years from now, or maybe it'll never happen. But I started. Even it didn't matter where I was. I wasn't in a good spot 2 years ago when I began this, but I just knew I needed to start because all I was doing was putting it off and off until I would
Mm-hmm.
probably never do it.
And you talked about your emotional baseline before being depressed and feeling really down on yourself. Where is your emotional baseline now?
I feel like I've just come to a place of so much more neutrality and acceptance and becoming so much less judgmental of everything in my environment that happens. I'm so much less reactive. I don't explode anymore like I used to when something wouldn't go my way or things didn't go as planned. I just such a simple saying that a lot of people go by. Everything happens for a reason. I always trusted in that, and so if you do trust in that, you don't need to react when you missed a train that you were supposed to take. When I traveled with friends, I've noticed that all these minor inconveniences to other people are just so big and they don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be. It's like, okay, you missed that train ride. That means you get to go into this cafe and have a coffee and maybe you'll meet like a CEO there. Maybe you'll meet like the most coolest person there. And just that's how I see things as. So I see it all as being protected, being guided, and just really trusting.
I love that, the neutrality and the trust. Because of having that neutrality and that trust, what do you feel like has changed in your life because of that, aside from just how you feel?
I think having that neutrality, trust, and acceptance for how things are and just not reacting to other things, I've been able to become less and less of an overthinker. I used to overthink myself, everything that I would say, everything that I would do, everything that someone else would say. And I just had all these things clouding my brain. And I couldn't even hear my own thoughts before because I was just so consumed for days on end of what does this person think of me? And so when you realize that not everybody needs to like you. And I think like when you're a kid in elementary school, your teachers want everybody to get along. Everybody needs to be friends. And that's what they tell you. Be nice to everybody. And yes, you should, but you don't need to be friends with everyone.
Yes. I feel like that is just a good point. Like period. You don't need to be friends with everyone. And I feel like this is such a, oh my God, we could go into a whole spiel about this. This is something that I feel like comes up for a lot, is like the friendship wounds of like wanting, feeling the need to be friends with everyone, feeling the need, or just in general, feeling the need to like be accepted by everyone. And it's like, not everyone's going to accept you, like ever. There's never going to be a point in time where everyone is going to accept you just because of how the world is, how people are. People have different preferences. If somebody hates vanilla ice cream and you come walking along and you are vanilla ice cream, it's not about you. That person just doesn't like vanilla ice cream. And so it's like finding the people who like your flavor, and also finding the acceptance and like the, when people say like, oh, I don't like vanilla ice cream, not taking that personally because it's not about you.
Yes, and that's something that I struggled with so for so long. I would take everything very, very personally. I was a people pleaser. I didn't know how to be different from someone else. If they would say something, I would just agree with them before even asking myself. I really lacked the skill of just analyzing the things around me. I feel like that was a skill that I was never really taught. And then when we started this work, I was questioning everything around me, everything that was happening. And it's so important that you do to just figure out why you are the way that you are. And so I was just agreeing with everything that people would say, even though it wasn't really what I agreed with deep down. I was just really afraid that someone wouldn't like me if I disagreed. And it doesn't have to come across, like you said, if someone likes vanilla ice cream and you're like, actually, I like chocolate ice cream. It doesn't have to be in this like rude way. And everything's just the energy behind it and how you say the things. So
100%. I feel like that's something that a lot of people are working on, and something that I have worked on and continue to work on is overcoming those people pleasing tendencies.
and
They
then
run deep.
just releasing the need to fit in. And I feel like when you're growing up, you're in high school, you're around like, the same set of friends for all these years, all you want to do is try to fit in. But then it comes a point where it's not actually fulfilling. It's not actually who you are. And I kind of went through that journey of all these years trying to be someone I wasn't. And then I was like, fast forward, like 20 years old. And I'm like, wait, why don't I know what I like? Why don't I know who I am? It's because I was trying to be just like my friends and everyone else was doing the same.
Yeah.
So
How do you feel like you started to find yourself? How did you get to the point of now knowing who you are and what you like, and overcoming those needing to feel accepted feelings?
I would say that like it was around a time when I was actually leaving a big, big friend group that I was friends with for a very long time. And I needed to leave because I wasn't growing there anymore. And it just became not good for me anymore. And so I was alone for 1 to 2 years where I didn't have any friends. So in that time, of course, I was very worried about how am I going to find new friends at this age? Where are they going to come from? But it was in those times of being alone where I was allowed to explore who I am what do I like to do when no one else is around? When I don't have friends to make plans with? When I don't have anyone telling me what to do? What is it that I want to do right now? And yeah, it was a lonely process, but it was just reconnecting with myself and being comfortable to be alone
Mm-hmm.
and not being ashamed of being by yourself and just enjoying your own company.
I love it. You first found me from a YouTube video, I think 2 years ago. And then you ended up getting into like the very first online course that I had made, which was like 2 years ago that I had launched. So Monica's been doing this work since then. And when we talk about mindset work, inner work, can you tell the audience, like, what does that entail to someone who may be newer to this information? And they were like, Monica, how the hell did you get here? What did you do? Can you tell our listeners, like, what exactly you did to change all of those things?
So, mindset work and doing the inner work, to me, at first, when I first started learning about this, people would talk about it and I'd be like, what actually is it? Because it's just it sounds so broad and I didn't know what it actually was. But really, it's about training your mind to become conscious about who you are and why you are the way that you are. So it's really about going within and questioning everything, questioning why do you do the things that you do, and trying to pinpoint anything that you're not happy with. So the areas that you feel like you can improve on. So much work that can be done in those areas to improve, and like you're never truly stuck.
So you're never really stuck. And I feel like with what you're saying of questioning, it's also what you were saying about the reactivity and finding that neutrality is like when you also feel angry or upset or hurt or sad, it's asking, why do I feel that way? What's coming up for me right now? What is under that emotion that triggers me to feel sad every time I see this, or to feel angry every time someone says this or does this? Why does that make me so heated? And it's like what you said of like discovering what's under there and clearing that up.
Yes, and just detecting all these negative emotions that you've been holding on to for so long so that you can
Mhm.
get out of these toxic cycles for good. So it's really just becoming aware of the way that you feel and making a change, wanting to make a change, deciding that you want to change and that you don't want to feel like that anymore.
And you were speaking about negative cycles. The question comes to mind, is there any like particular negative cycle that you want to share that you can share just your process of, okay, this was the negative cycle I went through, and then this is like what I did to overcome it. Is there any cycle that comes to mind?
I guess, like on the topic of friendships, I was noticing that I was constantly in cycles of attracting people in my life, or yeah, whether it was friendships, relationships, jobs, where I would be disrespected, I would be put down. And
Mm.
it was just this constant cycle. And I'm like, why am I attracting all these people, all these experiences where I don't even feel good when I leave that place? I feel depleted. I feel unloved. I feel unworthy. I feel like they don't care about me. Why is it that people are treating me this way? Am I really that different? I thought that they saw me just as this different person that they were allowed to walk all over and step all over. And I didn't know why that was. And it wasn't until getting into this work that I was able to know myself better so that I can know, who do I even want to be friends with? Who do I even like? And understanding that you can leave these cycles whenever you want. It was just a decision that you need to make. So it's becoming conscious of these cycles that you're attracting that keep going and going. And you need to learn the lesson. When you learn the lesson, that's when you stop attracting those things. When you raise your vibration and become a better person and focus on that, that's when you can get yourself out of those cycles. So it's just realizing that these repeating things are just going to keep repeating until you change, until you leave.
Yes. So when you talk about, I'm hearing people ask this question. When you talk about learn the lesson, if someone's asking, how do I learn the lesson? What lesson do I need to learn from this? What would you say to them in that?
I would say learning the lesson is about doing the hard thing. It's not always going to be easy. And when you're weighing the pros and cons of staying in a situation or leaving it, you really need to be honest with yourself. And you need to see which one is holding more weight. And it's as simple as a decision, and it will take time before you maybe come to terms with it and accept it. But if you need to be honest with yourself and realize that doing the hard thing is what's going to be best for you. So it's putting yourself first and not waiting for someone else to tell you what to do. So these types of things need to come from within. It's a decision that you need to make personally. And something I used to do was just seek all this external validation from other people. I didn't know how to make decisions for myself. I had no idea what to do. And so I would go to like 5 different people and be like, and it could be like something so small, like a small decision, like, oh, should I buy these shoes or that pair of shoes? And I deep down already had an answer. I already knew what I wanted. So then why did I go out and asking other people, what should I do? And then I lost so much trust in myself and I built all this resentment for myself when I wouldn't take the action that I deep down wanted. I was just listening to what other people expected of me. And a lot of the times I felt like the things that they would suggest for me wasn't even in my best interest. They didn't know my heart. They didn't know what I needed. I knew what I needed. I just wouldn't want to listen to myself. I felt like I just needed that validation to seek it and wanted others' approval. It made me feel safe to go and ask people, what should I do?
So when you talk about the friendship cycle and moving into a cycle where you're with people who now do love and respect you, you said you had to like learn the lesson and do the hard thing. What exactly did you do to get yourself out of that cycle and put yourself into a new cycle, or what we would call a new reality, experiencing a whole new different set of circumstances?
So I think it's really about stepping into the unknown. So when I say doing the hard thing, it's hard because you don't know what's going to come out of it, but you just know intuitively, internally, that this is going to be the best thing for you that you can possibly do. So for me, when I realized that I was stuck in these cycles, I really wanted to put an end to it. So I just made an exit plan of I made a cutoff date, a deadline for myself. Okay, by this date, I need to get out of this relationship. And it was a decision. So this meant like leaving friendships, cutting off family members, all because it was necessary for my own growth. And you're doing the hard thing because you love yourself. So it's really coming to terms with knowing that you need to do this thing in order to learn the lesson. Otherwise, even though it's more comfortable to stay in those cycles, because that's how you learn the lesson.
Yeah, and when you do those things, I just want to speak on the energetics. If you're just, accepting friendships from anyone, you are like manifesting that into reality, rather than when you have this intention of, no, this is the new thing that I'm accepting, you are putting your awareness and focus onto that. You are now like, this is why like being specific with what you want is so powerful, because you are now, if we look at like this, um, from left to right, like this timeline of the unlimited different potential realities that you could live in. Monica, in that point, found a reality and said, I am no longer accepting these other realities. My intention is now this. I'm up leveling myself and my standard to this, and I'm now only creating this. And so she goes out there with this new energetic vibration, this new standard, this new identity, and creates a whole new set of circumstances for herself, attracting whole new different types of people to her, creating that new reality for herself.
Yes. And it really was about raising my standards because before I used to be so desperate for people to like me and just when you come from a place of desperation, you're going to be attracting negative outcomes and you're going to be stuck in those cycles. So, like you said, when you know what you want, it's much easier to attract those things. It's much easier to detect if that was actually what you wanted or if it's not. So I think through the methods you've taught us, one thing I remember when I had no friends, you did a workshop on attracting your dream friendships. And you had us write down a list and be so specific of what do you want in a friend. And I did the same for what do I want in a partner. And when you do this, it keeps you so on track with what your higher self really, really needs and wants deep down. And it's so much easier to catch yourself when when you fall back into your old ways of being, to look back to this list. So, say you've manifested this new friend or a new partner, you can go back to this list and be like, okay, are they the things that I want? And if they're not, then you know that you're falling back into your old ways and it's not actually what you want. They're not actually aligned for you. And you're just settling. So, yeah, raising your standards and sticking to them, being true to them and your new identity and really embodying and practicing this new identity. It's going to cost you to just cut off some people, and it's very necessary. You can't just accept everyone's friendship. Not everybody deserves your presence in their life. And really, it's their loss. You're not losing anything.
100%. And when you talk about new identity and manifesting what you want, a lot of people have heard about manifestation, but have had a tough time manifesting what they want, or even a tough time overcoming their limiting beliefs. So, what would you say to those who maybe have been doing this work, but they're not seeing the results they ideally want yet?
I feel like with the influence of media, there's just so many content creators out there who all come from different experiences, different backgrounds, and there's just this overwhelming amount of information of people that are trying to tell you how to live your life, how to show up in relationships, who you should be, and it's just so much. So I feel like if this is you and if you are just so confused and overwhelmed as I once was, I feel like you should be making it actually a simpler process, and just cutting down is going to be so much better for you to find out, or rather choosing the people that you resonate with the most. So choosing only a couple maybe content creators that you really enjoy and that you actually feel good after listening to their content, and maybe diving deep into their teachings. Because when you're just, on TikTok and just scrolling, one person's telling you one thing, someone else is telling you another, and you don't know what to do. So another thing too is like, by making the process simpler, if you're trying to manifest things and it's not working for you, you should see the small things actually as manifestations. So say you're trying to manifest money and you find a dime or a toonie or something on the ground the next day. That's money. You asked for money. So be thankful. And I think there's so much to be thankful. So when these good things come into your life, you have to notice them. You have to acknowledge them. You have to thank God, source, the universe, guardian angels for giving you good things. And then just know that there's so much more of that's to come. So when I first learned about how to manifest something, it wasn't that I know that there's so many methods out there online. There's just so many of how to manifest something, and people make it sound so easy and that it comes so quick. Or when you're trying to manifest this big thing, just bringing in gratitude for the small things that are coming your way and seeing things as blessings instead of being so fixated on what you don't have. You should be diverting your attention to actually what you do have.
And with what you had said too, of all these creators make it sound so easy and as if it happens overnight, when you reprogram the subconscious mind, right? This is subconscious reprogramming. It takes time. to mold your brain. Like when you reprogram your mind, it's like molding your mind as if your mind is clay. And it takes time to do that, to create that. And I feel like with what you're saying, it's like continuing to just go on this path, not giving up, seeing what you want, and just day by day continuing to go after it, even when you experience hiccups, even when you might see something manifested in your life that you don't want to experience. You can't let that get you down. You've just got to keep your eye, keep your intention, keep your awareness and focus on what you're wanting to create while continuing the process of this is what I want, this is who I am, this is where I'm going.
And just like not giving up, and don't feel discouraged if that thing you wanted doesn't happen overnight. And I'd say, like, when you do first start out doing this work, it is a process. It does take time. It does require a lot of patience with yourself. And I feel like the deeper and deeper you get into this work, the faster things will actually come to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a process. And like you said, with neuroplasticity, there's just so much possible, and there's so much change that we're able to undergo. And if it's possible for one person, it's possible for you too.
100%. And speaking of the different, you have mentioned before, speaking on the different methods and practices that we might do to reprogram your subconscious, which I've spoken briefly about on my YouTube channel if you wanted to check that out. But was there any method or practice that was especially game changing for you where you were like, Sabrina, I don't know where I would be without this one practice that we did?
I feel like in the beginning, the practice of pause, regulate, and rewire, PRR. So that method itself, at first I thought it was going to be very hard, and it was very hard to detect the ways that I was being that I didn't like. But it truly takes a lot of self-reflection and just taking it very slow and easy. And you need a lot of time on your own to sit down and journal and reflect on, okay, how did my day go? How did I show up there? Did I like how I was? Or why did I do that? Why did I think that? Because it's when you are, as you call it, expanding your conscious container, that is when you can have this high level of self-awareness. And at first, it felt a little bit overwhelming because I'm like, okay, there's probably so many things that I need to work on. And there was, I had a long, long list of them. But it's just having patience and allowing them to unfold and present itself to you. And it did. And it's just like inquiring within and just having that curiosity of, why is this happening to me? Or why am I like this? Or how can I change? So with pause, regulate, and rewire, you're stopping yourself in the tracks of, as soon as you notice you said something that does not align with the new identity you're trying to call in, you're pausing, but you're not judging yourself. You're just noticing and realizing. And then with regulating, you're just bringing yourself back to neutral and just observing, pretty much. And then you have to think about, okay, how do I want to rewire this? How do I want to change this thought? Because my thought was kind of negative. How can I rewrite it? And I remember, Sabrina, a couple years ago, when I was asking you for help with this, I would have my negative thought written out. It's like, okay, this is what I thought. And I would say to you, I don't know how to write this in a better way. Can you help me? And I just needed that support from you to see it in such a higher vibrational perspective. And everything is just perspective. And at first, I didn't know how to rewire it on my own, but now I feel so much more confident to take a belief of mine and be like, I know how to rewrite it. I know how to rewire. And so then it becomes practicing that new belief that you want to call in. It's detecting your limiting beliefs. How is this limiting me? And how can I change this? So it's not being so hard on yourself about it. You can't be hard on yourself. None of these things are actually your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything's just like stuck in your subconscious. It's not until you bring this awareness that is when you're able to change. And it's not that it's going to happen overnight. Like we said, it's not like, okay, I've rewritten my limiting belief and now I believe my new supporting belief, but it's just putting your awareness there more and more and practicing that whenever these similar situations do come up. You know that it's happened to you before, so you know what to do now.
I love it. And I'm glad that you brought up the not beating yourself up about it part, because I think that's something that across the board, I think everyone struggles with being hard on themselves. Oh, I shouldn't be struggling with this. Oh, I should be further along by now. And the mind just goes crazy. And it's with what you're saying of increasing that neutrality and just becoming that observer of the thoughts that come in your mind and just continuing to practice and rewire is so necessary to experience that change that you're looking for. And I know that we have talked about how you have moved to Europe, but you actually have your own tutoring business as well. And you've built that up and you have people working under you now, and you actually have it running in Canada as you are across the country. So you've been able to manifest some of that. How has this work impacted your business in that way?
So I started tutoring about 3 to 4 years ago. And back then I was just starting out. I wasn't taking it very seriously. I wouldn't even call it a business. I was like, yeah, I tutor just casually. And since doing this work, I've been able to take my business a lot more on a professional scale. And I've been able to grow it and attract so much more money. I've been able to see that passive income is possible. And before, I was very unclear about whether I was just doing this for fun or if I actually wanted to grow this business. And that was something I was considering. I'm like, okay, am I going to put my energy here or am I just going to find a job somewhere else? And for me, it felt very important to work for myself. I realized that working for yourself was just something that I really wanted to do. My dad, he was an entrepreneur himself, he had his own business. And so, looking from where I come from, I just found so much inspiration in that too. It's like, okay, if these people around me were able to do it, I can as well. And so, I remember just feeling a little bit uninspired and lacking some passion in my business when it first started. And just the way I would show up, I would be very tired and just unsure about it. When I started this work was when I realized I didn't want this business just to be a tutoring business, just academic based, and that was all. I realized that it was a lot more than that and that I'm still working to growing. I wanted it to be a combination of tutoring and academia paired with wellness. And I feel like kids are so capable of learning some of these methods that we talk about when they're so young. Like, and it doesn't have to be so complex for their understanding, but just teaching them on a very basic scale the power of your thoughts and your emotions and nervous system regulation and taking care of themselves and journaling. And it can be very simple for them. So that's why over the last year, I've added to my business and I've started workshops for kids to come together to teach them about a topic that's mental health related, teaching them about anxiety, about bullying, about friendships. And it's through these workshops that kids are coming together and realizing that they're not alone. And it's such a cool thing to see that they're actually able to support the peers. And I've just been wanting to create a community to bring these kids together. And it's just something that I wish that I had when I was young. And so I feel like if I can be so much more than just their tutor, I can catch their limiting beliefs about themselves because I notice at a certain age it starts to happen for these kids in elementary school, and I'll stop them and I want to inspire them and help them rewire on the spot. And they don't even know that I'm doing that, but I usually have a lot of parents coming to me and saying, my kids are so like, they look up to you so much. You're so inspiring to them. I'm going to take my kids out of these bigger programs for academia, and I want you to teach them, because you are doing so much more of an impact in their lives. And I think they're noticing this more than just teaching them French and math. Those are the subjects that I teach. It's more than just French and math. It's about teaching them about the world. And this is something that teachers don't teach. They are not taught these things in school. And so my goal is just to help these kids so that they don't have to have these years of suffering later on, and just to make an impact in that way.
So since doing this work, the mindset work, you took your business from just starting to tutor and to have, something for income to now this is like a mission. This is like you're making such a bigger impact. You have grown so much more into your light and what I see as like your purpose. You filled your cup up, now feel so much more amazing in your body. Like you now get to radiate and overflow what you've built within yourself into other people's. And we see that in the reflection of your business. So not only are you making that bigger impact on the people around you, you've grown the business itself. Now you have people working under you. How many people do you have working under you now?
We have 4 other tutors.
Which is amazing. You're straight up like CEO, like boss of the tutoring business. So you've been able to grow the business so much and make the passive income. Didn't you say as well that you started to pay stuff for your family as well?
So I am now supporting myself and my mom financially, and it feels so good to be able to do that. And that was purpose in the beginning, is like, I really want to be in a more financially stable part for myself, not just for me, but for my family as well. And yeah, I've actually been able to pay off all my family's debts, and I've been able to just flip my whole family's financial situation upside down. And it's because of me. And yeah, I'm just proud of myself for being able to do that. And I didn't think it was possible, but it drives me every day.
And you should feel proud of yourself. That's amazing. So you manifested the trip to Europe.
So I manifested the trip to Europe. Plus, I won a scholarship. So I'm getting paid more than I actually need to survive to be here. So it's so cool. So basically getting money so I can go travel to other places in Europe.
Wow. So manifested that, the Europe plus extra money. Your entire inner world is just completely transformed of who you are, how you operate, how you feel, who you attract into your life, friends, relationships, standards, all of that. You have grown the business, now have 4 people working under you. You're making passive income. You've paid off your family's debt, completely transformed your family's finances, which is insane. Is there anything else that you want to share of what you've manifested since diving into subconscious programming?
So 2 years ago, I was needing a car, just any car. I didn't care what car it was, but I remember manifesting a car. It was actually one that my brother's boss's father-in-law was selling. He happened to be moving back to his country, and I didn't even know what car it was. I was just like, I'll take it. All I knew was that it was $800. And so that was my first car. It was a very beat up old car from 2002. And the 2 years that I did drive it, I remember telling you, Sabrina, that I was so happy that I had a car, but as I was driving it, all these problems would come up with the car, and I was just comparing myself every day as I drive it. I would look to the car next to me and be like, whoa, that's a nice car. Mm-hmm. And all these thoughts would come in like, oh, that they have that car because it came from their parents. And just all these things. And it was like, why am I driving this car? Even though it was a manifestation. I wanted a car and I got one, but it still wasn't making me feel that good. And I asked you, like, what should I do? And I remember you telling me to change my perspective about it. As I'm in this car, start looking to the other people around me and seeing that as evidence that I can get there too one day. And actually getting out of the states of jealousy, resentment, and anger, and all these things that are just making me feel so shit about myself. And instead look to the Porsche next to me and think like, wow, that's so cool. Like they have such a cool car. Like, I wonder how they were able to get that. You go like, and I remember it was so easy for me to change that perspective. It didn't take me very long before I did. And so when I changed the way I was thinking about the people around me that had what it looked like to be so much more than I did, I just put myself in such a better mind space. I still was able to show up with so much more confidence still. It wasn't taking away my confidence. I had gratitude for what I had, and I was actually excited for the other person and had a smile on my face when I would see this gorgeous car next to me. And so that was something too that I struggled with a lot for a long time, is just comparing myself to other people. But it really served no purpose. There was no need. And just changing that perspective of seeing, like, even if it's a friend that has something you don't have, it was like thinking like, wow, that's so cool that I'm friends with that person and they have this. That means like it's possible for me too. I'm so close to that. So when I was, even though I wasn't getting some of the things at first, and I just look around me and it was like, if these people can have this, I can too. And it's being excited that it's even in proximity to me, that it's close to me. That's cool in and of itself. So I got the whole car story. My cute 2002 Hyundai served me well. But I've been able to manifest a brand new car that I got just a couple of months ago. So stepping out of the old and entering the new, and it was something that I wanted for a long time. I wanted to manifest an even better car, and I did. And so just really proud of myself again.
I feel like it really wasn't that long after where you were talking to me about that, and we had that conversation, and then you ended up getting back to me shortly after that saying how good you were feeling about it, and I was like, hell yes, that's awesome. And then it was shortly after that where you messaged me and said that you just manifested like this brand new car. So it just goes to show the tangible evidence that happens when you make these mindset shifts. It's not just to feel a little better, feel a little more confident, which that's great. We all want that for you, but you're shifting what your mind is pointing out. You're shifting how you operate on this energetic level, and what you are not only shifting how you respond to the world, but you're shifting how the world responds to you. And so you have it right there. The before, what she did, and the evidence of what happens after, which is amazing.
And when I was like having that anger and comparison cycle, I was just in this very reactive state. When something would come up with my car, when something would go wrong in my life, just be me blowing up like, oh, this again, oh, another problem again and again and again. When is this going to end? And so when I changed that mindset, I was like, oh, okay, there's another problem. It's okay. I can fix it. It'll get solved. I was just reminding myself, it's something that you talk about a lot, Sabrina. When you're starting this work, there's the first state changes come from inside, and then everything in the 3D, there's a little bit of a delay. And so I kept on telling myself that. I was like, okay, I will manifest like a new and better car. There's just a delay right now, and there's more internal work that I need to do. So sometimes when you look to your reality in the 3D space and it's not what you want, it's actually like your internal world that you need to work on.
Now, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to get into this kind of mindset work that will actually create those tangible results similar to what you got, but they don't know where to start?
If you don't know where to start, I think that For me, it was the most useful I journaled a lot, and not just journaling about your day, but really diving deep into who you are as a person and just realizing that everything about who you are, your beliefs, your feelings, your emotions, all these cycles, it's all rooted back from something in your childhood. And that was sort of the mission that I was going on. And I knew that everything was linked to those critical years of development. I think it's ages from when you were born to like 7 years old, you're just such a sponge and you're soaking up everything that's in your environment, everything that you hear and see, even if your conscious mind isn't even like fully developed, everything is just being planted there. And so it was just me realizing that I was holding on to so much from those years and my childhood. And so I think that if you can start to recall all these memories that you're holding on to, because you're holding on to those memories for a reason. It's not just random. And it's like you have to ask yourself, what lessons can you learn through those? And how is it affecting you now as an adult? Because unless you are aware of those things that had happened to you, it's going to stay with you throughout adulthood until you actually make the conscious effort to want to change them. So I think journaling is a really great thing, but with an intention. You have to journal and get to know yourself better through that. And just looking back at things that you remember and just keep questioning it. Like, why did this happen? Or why did I feel that way? And try to see if there's any links to that event, those events that happened to you. And if there's any links to emotions that still come up for you today and how it's connected.
I love it. Journaling is also how I really became aware of a lot before I got into the whole slew of this, teaching it and everything. A question that I ask every person who comes on the show that I would love to ask you, if you were to share just one sentence of how you believe that we as just like the human population, as people together, how we could come together and make the world a better place, what would it be?
I think how everyone can come together to make the world a better place. We should all be acting from a place of love and just realize that everyone's doing the best they can with what they have and with what they know. So, yeah, if you realize this, there's so much more compassion to go around, so much more gentleness that can be offered to those around you.
I love it. Perfect. Well, this was an amazing conversation. I think there's so much value for people who just need evidence of how they can change their lives and do so in a way that's actually pretty simple through, like you said, just the PRR, pausing when you notice that old pattern, regulating yourself and rewiring and choosing what you do want to create. You can go ahead and share your socials or any contact links so that the listeners can further get into your world.
Absolutely. So you can find me on my business Instagram page. It would be at learning_wellness_tutoring.
That is Monica. Thank you so much for being on the show. And
Thank
we'll
you
see you
so
next
much,
time.
Sabrina.
If you want practical steps on how you can transform into the version of yourself who is quite literally living in your vision board, I invite you to participate in my free training that teaches you how to rewire your identity to a new you, how to be disciplined and devoted to your purpose, how to absolutely love what you do and make an impact doing it, and activate your highest self. The link is left in the description. You don't want to miss out on this training, and I will see you in the next episode of Shattering Reality.